everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be another Netflix series review on Rompan Todo or Break It All. It is a 6-part Netflix series where it dives into the history of rock and roll in Latin America from the 1950s with bands such as Los Teen Tops and Los Locos del Ritmo to present day bands such as Maná, Soda Stereo, Juanes, Julieta Venegas, and many more. In the early years of rock, bands such as Los Teen Tops y Los Locos del Ritmo would take popularized English songs and sing them in Spanish. Later on, they would take these same songs and then they would transform them by adding colloquial slang, which was a great hit for them. In the documentary, it is narrated by the artists themselves and they discuss both the music and the times that they lived through. What makes rock in Latin America different, at least in my opinion, from the US and the UK, is that it is heavily tied with the political sphere and social issues. And it shouldn't come as a surprise considering the fact that the decades of the 70s and 80s were a tumultuous time for many Latin American countries. You had dictators like Pinochet in Chile, La Junta y el Peronismo in La Argentina. There was a civil war that was brewing in the 70s and later exploded in the 80s in the country of El Salvador. And you had censorship and corruption along with the 1982 earthquake in Mexico. The series itself tends to focus a lot more in Mexico y La Argentina, but there are other countries that they do mention such as Chile, Peru, Uruguay, and Colombia, if I am not mistaken. But specifically, they tend to focus on Argentina and Mexico. In Mexico, the government did vilify the rock genre as well as their musicians, stating that they were demons and that they were corrupting the youth. And it got to the point where for a decade, these musicians were not able to perform in arenas. However, that did not stop them from performing. They ended up finding places called funky holes. And essentially these funky holes were abandoned basements, factory buildings, parking lots, basements, anywhere where they could essentially play their music without being caught by the government. These places were not the most hygienic and not the most secure, but it did serve its purpose of letting these bands play their music and have their music be heard and their points of views be expressed. When they were asked to describe what rock was to them, many ended up coming up with the word freedom, and essentially for a lot of these artists it really did boil down to freedom because many were murdered or they just disappeared, never to be heard of again. And it all boiled down to the content of their lyrics because they were speaking out against the government. They were bringing awareness to the social issues that were going on in their country. They weren't seen as the most ideal people for society, and obviously the government did not take kindly that they were speaking out against them. As I mentioned, many disappeared or were murdered, such as the musician Victor Jara from Chile. He was a supporter of Salvador Allende, who was the president of the time before the coup d'etat from Pinochet happened.
No solamente cantas al trabajador, al campesino, al minero, al trabajador del mar, sino también tienes canciones de amor.
Nosotros, a los que nos dicen cantantes de protesta, empezando yo no estoy de acuerdo con ese término porque no considero que es un término válido, por lo menos para mí. Creemos que el amor es lo fundamental.
And obviously when Pinochet came into power, he was not seen to be, very friendly towards the government, and he ended up paying the ultimate price, and that was with his life, unfortunately. A statement that resonated with me, it was said by Gustavo Santayola, and he said, we have to sing in our language, we have to play in our own language. And it struck a chord with me because I remember being back in college reading articles, novels, and short stories of authors from the 20th century who had this sentiment and this idea and were just writing it down on paper and telling their people that we should stop idolizing countries in Europe and the US for their beauty and we should start appreciating Latin America's own rich culture and its beauty just because it's our own. I'm maybe paraphrasing here, but I remember something along the lines one of the authors said, if the wine is tart, at least it's our own wine. And that is a very powerful statement because it just says it's our own. Nobody can take that away from us. So it's really cool to see that it wasn't a sentiment that was only felt by the authors and the academia, but it was also felt by the common day folk and the musicians as well. Another thing that was very interesting to see was the fact that a lot of these bands were exploring and experimenting with their sounds and infusing those sounds with rock music. Some examples of these were Café Tacvba and Enanitos Verdes. Most of these bands were infusing their countries or their regions' folkloric sounds. So with Enanitos Verdes, you had their song Lamento Boliviano, where it had rock elements, but it also had Andean beats and elements in there. Then you have Julieta Venegas with her accordion and rock music. You had Argentinian rock bands fusing tango. Other countries were infusing cumbia with rock. So it was just amazing to see all of these different genres getting like married together and coming up with a very cool and different concept that wasn't seen a lot during those times. Overall, I thought the series was great. It was phenomenal. It was just a very well done series. I am a history junkie, so the fact that it had that, the political aspects, and then rock, it was just a great marriage amongst those topics. And then seeing like some of my favorite bands that I grew up listening to from like the late 80s and 90s, such as Maná and Los Enanitos Verdes, was great. Even seeing Juanes on the series was amazing. And then for my husband, he is a huge fan of Los Prisioneros, Enanitos Verdes. He loves Hombres G, and of course, like I think his favorite band is Soda Stereo. So just having that one episode where it was heavily dedicated to Soda Stereo, he was living for it. So it was an amazing series. I highly recommend that you guys watch it. This series does delve into a lot more issues, deeper topics that obviously I can't cover all in like the time span of a YouTube video. But like I said, I highly recommend it and you guys should check it out. That is it for today's video. I hope that you guys did enjoy my analysis and review of Rompan Todo or Break It All. Leave a comment down below on what was your favorite episode or your favorite band or whatever you want to leave down in the comment section. Just leave it down there. I hope that you guys do watch it because like I said, it is a phenomenal series and it's a must watch in my opinion. If you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Do not forget to subscribe and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye!
You're gone now, will you coming back? Yeah, I know that, yeah, I know that. You're the traveling kind, it's a known fact. Yeah, I know that. Once you've seen all the things, all the